Music is magic, a universal language that transcends culture, class, and is able to tap directly into our emotions to make us feel some type of way. We use it to hype ourselves up, get through a tough breakup, walk a mile in each other's shoes, and think about our place in the universe. It can bring up memories, for better and for worse, as well as cement new ones. Music can be appreciated at many different levels. For most people, their relationship with music is relatively one-sided, an often passive listening experience, honing in on the beat, or the words, or the vibe. For others, they enjoy the raw musicality and skills on display, and focus on the talent of the performers, the quality of the songwriting, or the work put into mixing and production. But most people value music because of one common denominator: its ability to captivate and move the listener. Musicians of all stripes use this as a guiding light when exploring this craft. Many people learn to perform other people's music. Songwriters create their own. But these approaches have one thing in common: playing from a script. There's no problem with this. You can be an accomplished musician who's never written anything at all. There's no one correct way to experience music, and that's part of its beauty and its universality. But there is another way, and it's my single favorite way to participate: improvisation. This throws the script out the window and chucks you into the deep end of melody, harmony, and rhythm. Improvising allows musicians to let go, channeling their heart, intuition, and the energies around them into something that captures those intangibles in a way that words cannot express. But here I am doing my best. This is the most direct and visceral way to speak the language. Not reciting a speech like I am now, but by speaking off the cuff, creating a dialogue with the musical context around you, even if that context is just the force of your own heartstrings. Experiencing this phenomenon is tricky. Have you ever had something on the tip of your tongue, but you couldn't quite express it? Musicians who write or improvise know this feeling all too well. A melody, rhythm, chord progression, or even a whole song playing in your head teases you as you struggle to translate your brainwaves into sound waves. It's a necessary hurdle to overcome as you learn to express yourself in music. As you hone your skills, you'll unlock more avenues to translate those internal sounds to the external. Today we're going to look at some musical philosophy and knowledge to help you unlock those passageways. What does it take to improvise well? Step 1. Letting go. The crucial first step to take when working to improve your improvisational skills is to let go. Let go of preconceived notions, expectations, inhibitions, worries, uncertainties. Throw it out. In many ways, the less you think, the better. In order to open your antenna to spontaneous musical energy, you need to set all of these barriers to the side. These thoughts are hurdles in between you and unfettered creativity. We tend to place these barriers on ourselves because it's our instinct to stay the course, to avoid things we are unsure of, to stay safe in the bounds we're familiar with. This was helpful when we were hunter-gatherers. I should probably not be out in the open in this field of lions. Seems kind of sketchy. Nowadays, that instinct gets linked to our creative thinking, and it holds us back from experimenting and improving. You're not going to get mauled by lions if you play a note outside of a key, or if you completely mess up that technique you don't have quite down just yet. Allow yourself to make those mistakes. Lots of them. Forget about the chasm between your current abilities and what you'd like to be able to do. In other words, don't look down. Active listening. When we first learn to play music, we typically learn to play and listen to ourselves perform. One common hang-up with musicians just starting to play with others is listening to yourself rather than to the context you're playing in. The magic of improvising with others has everything to do with the dynamic between the musicians. It's not a matter of speaking the most eloquently. It's a matter of learning how to hold good conversation. The musicians listen and react to one another, rather than simply playing to one stalwart performance. This back and forth creates a through line to a path that couldn't be explored without this collaboration. The drummer starts building up in dynamics, leading the bassist to create a driving rhythm, which makes the guitarist launch into a crescendo, which informs the other musicians, and so on and so forth. This dynamic is not possible if you're only listening to yourself. You must surrender to the groove. Developing trust with your ear. The following 2 points are some of the most important steps to bridge the gap between the notes in your head and the notes you broadcast. The first is developing trust in your ear, also known as ear training, and the second is understanding and internalizing music theory. While you don't need to know theory to develop your ear, basic theory knowledge ties in with ear training spectacularly. Ear training is a practice of learning how to listen for different musical qualities and understand how to use them to convey what you want to get across in your playing. Most of us actually have some sort of intrinsic skill for this. You may not know what chords are, but you sure do know a sad song when you hear one. You may have no clue how notes work, but you can sing Happy Birthday like no one's business. Developing trust with our ear involves taking this basic intuition and strengthening it. With targeted practice, we can become familiar with the building blocks of music using just our ears. Learning to recognize a major or bright and happy chord compared to a minor or dark and sad chord, hearing the structure of the basic major scale and being able to identify the home note or the root note of the music, becoming familiar with common chord progressions and being able to hear tension and release in harmony. As you build this knowledge, you will strengthen your ability to react to music and play along intuitively. Honing this skill is relatively easy if you know how to practice. Using resources like musictheory.net is a great way to hear these concepts firsthand and to start to process what these terms mean. Music is an experiential medium. You can read 1,000 books, but you'll never play like someone who's practiced 1,000 hours unless you put the work in. Imagine a world where you don't comprehend the concept of colors. You see them everywhere, from the blue sky to green trees to red stoplights in the dark of night, but you have no way to describe or understand them. This is what it's like to hear music without a trained ear. You can still experience and enjoy it, but it would be difficult to paint like Bob Ross if you don't know what color to make a happy tree. Internalizing theory. There's an epidemic of musical ignorance. I speak to many musicians of different skill levels, and there's one barrier many people put on themselves disguised as a badge of honor or authenticity. This is the idea of shunning and ignoring music theory. Many will say that learning theory will ruin their inner creative spark or make it too much like math, etc. Well, I hate to break it to you, but music is math. It's just glorious ear candy that enriches our lives that's also math. This rejection of theory is motivated by fear or a lack of determination. Learning basic music theory is a giant leap towards a greater understanding of music. This is a surprisingly controversial position. I've had conversations with people asking me how I can play the way I do, or how to play or learn a song in general, and a common refrain I hear from people is that they just want to figure it out by ear, which I admire. But so many of these musicians have little to no ear training and refuse to learn anything about theory. Then they become frustrated when it takes so long to figure out a simple riff or melody, and they tire themselves out creatively. The irony of this mentality cannot be overstated. It's a big play to circumvent learning basic theory, which is written off as being too complicated. In reality, this avoidance makes it exponentially harder to explore music. It's the equivalent of eating soup with a fork and refusing a spoon when you're offered it. After all, that would ruin the spirit of soup consumption. Learning the theory behind what makes a chord sound happy or sad, or why that chorus is so wonderfully anthemic, or what makes that bridge so incredibly epic, this is a natural pair to ear training. Being able to understand the pattern of the major scale so you can use it for yourself. Being able to recognize that perfect fourth interval by remembering the first notes to Here Comes the Bride. becoming familiar with the classic 4-chord 1-5-6-4 progression and knowing when you hear it. This knowledge builds upon itself with experience and a curious ear. Using ear training, along with understanding basic music theory, will inherently help you better understand, relate to, and speak the language of music by giving you specific reference points to sounds you already know intuitively. Painters use color theory so they can mix palettes and create pieces from their mind's eye. Knowing red and yellow makes orange didn't bastardize Michelangelo's creative output, as far as I know. In the same way, knowing more about what makes music work will allow your own musical skills to flourish. Developing technique and ability through practice. A frustrating side effect of our increasingly fast-paced, instant gratification culture is a tendency to expect results and improvement immediately. Social media, among other things, is retraining our brains to expect instant payoff, while also promoting the most exceptional, surreal versions of ourselves. We are not to show our blemishes in the public sphere, lest we be judged. What floats to the top of the algorithm is commonly uncommon, showcasing extreme highs or lows. We're discouraged from displaying mediocrity in any way. This leads to people only being exposed to the best of the best, and it creates an inferiority complex. We see a 5-year-old playing a ripping blues solo on TikTok, and we sit in equal parts awe and envy, wondering what we've done with our lives. It creates this false expectation that some people are gifted and that others are, well, not. This environment creates a perfect storm of people wanting to become excellent immediately, because that's just how it works, right? The people who do X hobby are the ones who are exceptional. No exceptions. This is far from the truth. In reality, the reason so many exceptional artists exist is because of all the silent work put in behind the scenes. The end product is glorified, while the hundreds, if not thousands of hours of practice, knowledge, dedication, desire, and more practice is minimized. In other words, you must allow yourself to suck before you can improve to being mediocre. Then you must work through mediocrity to become even better at your craft. This is done not with hand waving or buying that $2,000 Les Paul. It's accomplished by steady, consistent, and humble practice, as well as motivation to improve. There are no shortcuts, and it would be lame if there were. You can read about new techniques, scales, theory, songwriting, etc. all the livelong day. But if you're not practicing, you're not going to internalize this knowledge. Use your playing time to practice applying skills that you're learning and working out. Spend time jamming along to a track in a key of that scale you just learned. See if you can come up with a riff in that 6/8 time signature that you're just learning about. Try writing a sad song with those diatonic chords you heard about recently. When I was a kid, I remember finding some print lessons from Steve Vai on his website. One lesson from 1989, called Musical Meditation, sticks out to me to this day. This is an excerpt from his article. The following exercise will help you develop your musical meditation skills. Take one isolated musical idea, such as a single chord or riff. For our example, let's take vibrato. Vibrato is a very expressive technique and can say 1,000 different things when properly used or misused. Sit with your guitar and a clock and vibrate a note for 1 hour. Sounds simple, but here's the catch. Never deviate from holding that note. Pick it as many times as you like. Try many different vibrato approaches: fast, slow, soulful, mellifluous, etc. Most important, don't let your mind wander. When you find yourself thinking of anything other than vibrato, and you will, probably in the first few seconds, pull your mind back to the note. Your mind will wander off into thoughts such as, am I doing this right? Then, boy, what a waste of time this is. Eventually, you'll find yourself thinking about your friends, your financial situation, what you did yesterday, what you're going to do tomorrow, and of course, let's eat! This is the hard part. Just keep pulling your mind back to vibrating that note. It's a discipline worth working on. While this may sound unorthodox, i.e., crazy, it was something I took to heart as a kid. This mindset opened me up to tying my heart to the notes I play. Truly focusing on your relationship to the instrument in your hands, to the moment you're in, to the feelings that guide you. This approach is fundamental to allowing yourself to let go and try new things. Forget the world around you and speak through your music. Hold no expectations of immediate success. Shut off the frustrations in your brain seeking to distract you from steady improvement. Musicianship, like many skills and pursuits learned from experience, is a skill built over time. The passage of time makes it hard for us to measure our improvement. You may not feel it, but you're intrinsically a different person than you were yesterday. Billions of cells inside you have lived and died since you had dinner last night. In the same way, we have trouble sensing our progression in our personal development. Understanding this is crucial, as it frees us from expecting immediate results and allows us to trust the process of slow and steady improvement. One more thing about practice, which may seem counterintuitive. It's better to practice 5 days a week for 10 minutes than it is to set aside a 2-hour block every Saturday. This is because we learn through reinforcement. When we set out to learn something new, our brain is literally shaping new pathways and connections to help us understand what it's doing. It internalizes the knowledge and forges it deeper into our minds. This is especially true on a physical level. Do you need to think about how you move your thumb to unlock your phone, or how to brush your teeth? Or have you internalized those movements into your muscle memory? Remove barriers to practicing your craft. If you intend to improve your guitar playing, why do you have it in the case in the closet instead of on a stand? If you want to get better at mixing songs, why is your laptop shoved into a corner? Place your priorities within your grasp, and you will be that much more likely to pursue them. Do you really have no time for practice? Or is your time devoted to swiping your phone for an hour or more every day? Make an effort to create space and time for your creative pursuits, and put in the work. It'll add up before you know it.